Hello, everyone. I just popped in from our main session, so it's great to see everybody here. Yay! And I know it's going to be a great discussion for everyone. I'm Erin Ford, Executive Vice President of SCbio, and I'm just here to welcome you. The person that's going to be running the show this morning is Matt Vaadi, CEO and founder of ERG, a payroll and HR company based in Colombia. Also, SCbio is a client of ERG. He will be moderating and contributing also to today's discussion along with Jimmy Dascani from Arthrex and Lou Kennedy, CEO of Nephron Pharmaceuticals and SCbio board chair. So Matt, I'm going to say take it away.
Thanks, Erin. I appreciate it. Jimmy and Lou, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We all really appreciate your time. And I know just like everybody else, I'm really looking forward to learning from both of you. So let's kind of table the issue here to get started. As the fastest growing segment in the knowledge economy in South Carolina, life sciences has some really unique challenges when it comes to recruiting, retaining, and developing talent. How are you overcoming those challenges, and what are those challenges specific that you've seen so far in your journeys, and especially as we look at the last 6 months? And we'll dive deeper into that here as time goes on. But let's hear what the challenges are for your organization to start. And Jimmy, why don't you go ahead and start for us?
All right. Well, good morning, everyone, and certainly appreciate the invitation. Doing a great job so far. So for us, Arthrex is in the medical device side of the life sciences industry. So one of the big challenges for us is a lack of awareness. I can tell you, I've been in healthcare and life sciences for 27 years, and it took me about 23 of those years to even understand life sciences and the med device industry specifically. And so that's a big one for us. Of course, there's always competition. I'm sure Lou's going to speak to that. So it's trying to, how do you differentiate yourself from the competition for employees? And then lastly, the geography was a big issue for us. So depending on the type of job, whether it's bioengineers or part of our sales force or manufacturing, you're limited by geography. And so we were delighted to bring our business to South Carolina for that very reason. The talent, the workforce, the opportunities that you all provide, and of course the collaboration throughout the SCbio network here is big for us. But so lack of awareness is probably our biggest one right now, and I'll get to how we're tackling that after Lou maybe explains some of her challenges as the bio veteran here.
Yeah, as a recent transplant, your lack of awareness is certainly unique compared to Nephron for sure. And so, Lou, what would you add or maybe expound upon as far as those challenges when it comes to recruiting top talent in the area?
Well, I would say that, and people around South Carolina have heard me say this before, the recruiting opportunities in South Carolina are so far and away better than what I experienced in Central Florida. In Orlando, because it's an entertainment town, it's not hard to recruit people that want to work at the parks or want to do, hospitality. What we didn't have is an abundance of chemists and microbiologists and things that we need for daily operations and execution. So coming to South Carolina has been great. And I should have known because I'm from Columbia, South Carolina, and I get it. People don't want to leave their parents. They want to live near, mom and dad. The parents help babysit. They all hunt and fish. Whatever. So what I've experienced so far is a lot more opportunity to hire folks with advanced degrees. So we have never had so many PhD candidates and master's candidates. So I think what happens is, if the job isn't available when a South Carolinian graduates, they go get another degree. So we've been very fortunate to hire a lot. I mean, we have, I can't even count the number of PhD chemists, for example. And that's been a real plus for us, the recruiting here. And I would say that it seems as if the schools really do listen. There's a private college not far from Nephron, about 40 minutes, and they were kind enough to add this year a 4-year degree program in pharmaceutical manufacturing just because I asked. I mean, so and what I said to them is that there are a lot of kids that don't want to go to pharmacy school or can't afford to go to pharmacy school that may want to work in the industry. And so they've built an actual curriculum that would benefit both Arthrex and us. And in fact, the college is located about halfway between our two companies. So I think that's going to be a plus in coming years. We'll be able to recruit from that program. And the technical colleges are very good about supporting the different industries. And we've been working with SCbio to add some more programs at several more technical colleges across the state to support all of what we're doing in life sciences.
That's great. Thank you. And Jimmy, your issues seem similar to maybe some of the smaller organizations or companies that are a little bit newer, just in terms of their history as it relates to, obviously Nephron has some established inroads as it comes to recruiting and things like that. But you've talked about some of the things that are challenges for smaller businesses, new to the region, kind of similar things, lack of awareness, the competition. We're all fighting for the same talent. Just in geography is obviously why you're here in South Carolina. But how do you overcome some of those things when it comes to the lack of awareness and the high competition for the talent that you're looking to gain on your team?
Yeah, great question, Matt, and certainly agree with everything Lou just said. And I switched my picture behind me. This is our manufacturing facility we built in South Carolina before I had our global headquarters on for you. So I'm using some camera trickery here. But one of the big things, and Lou just talked about this, was getting engaged with the colleges, universities, creating custom programs as potential feeders, or at a minimum, just creating that awareness. And even at the high school level, and we're doing virtual events now. We've even gone as far back as middle school, so we're really trying to get them young. But creating that awareness through tours is a big thing for us, so facility tours, virtual engagement. And then, of course, we're super excited about these programs that we're creating and participating in. We're about a year along in our Clemson program was the initial program, and because of some of the early success of that and the job placement within our organization from some of those graduates, we've expanded and we're experimenting with that program in different colleges and universities now. So really grateful for that connection, in addition to the normal routes like the career sources and workforce solutions. And that's important for us as we get off the ground here. Just for perspective for our listeners or viewers here, our main manufacturing facility in Southwest Florida, we have almost 2,000 employees just in that facility. And so in Anderson County, we're up over 300. And over the next 3 to 5 years, we hope to mirror that and approach that 1,500 plus level. So certainly, if we're above 300 right now, got a lot of work to do, but we've accomplished probably the liftoff is the hardest part in many ways. And we're grateful for the connections and the collaboration that we've had so far. And I think, as we get more entrenched and become, true stakeholders in the community, I think that'll pay off for us.
So Lou, in talking to you in preparation for the last time we were going to do this in person, I remember hearing some of the things that Nephron did really differently when it came to your recruiting approach to go and identify top talent in the community all around South Carolina. Why don't you share with us some of the things that Nephron does differently and maybe some things that others out there can apply?
Well, I definitely want to give a shout out to what Jimmy just said. We do also welcome, not since COVID, but pre-COVID, we probably had 3 schools in a week doing field trips and tours. And I do think you have to start early. We have to hopefully inspire kids to want to pursue a career in microbiology or chemistry or engineering. And so we welcome the tours, and most of all, the faculty, because you want the teachers to be cognizant of what we're doing in our companies so they weave it into their curriculum, or and hopefully inspire kids to say, well, what is microbiology, for example? What would I need to do? What classes would I need to take? So I too think it starts early on, and we encouraged tourism. I can't wait to get back to it because I think it keeps the staff at Nephron young, listening to the questions and what the kids want to know. And you make sure to include things, the kids love all the robotics at our facility. And so the more questions they ask, the more inspires us to, to be thorough about what we're saying when they do come. But we do some crazy things to recruit. One of the things that I like is there's a Facebook page that you can use. It's like what's happening in Hillian, South Carolina, what's happening in Batesburg, Leesville, what's happening in Anderson. And I found a great way to recruit where you're getting on a real local granular level, that people who aren't looking at more traditional channels like Indeed or Monster or something like that, they might in fact be looking at the Facebook. And that's been it's an odd one, but it's been a good recruiting tool. We also use social media, Instagram, all of it, to post when we're looking for folks. We were recently trying to hire a lot of nurses, and we just took it to social media and blasted it out and had everybody at our company sharing. And so that was a really good opportunity. But I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the portal that SCbio created since the earlier part of this year. And so what I think is that people who are looking for a career in the life sciences that maybe are trying to move out of these big metropolitan areas because of crime and other reasons, since even COVID started, and since we've started talking more and more about diversity and inclusion, we actually just hired somebody from Boston because they Googled up life sciences, insurance, coding, some of these keywords, and they happened upon our company because of that. So that we thought that was really cool, that people are leaving these larger cities, and I think they're coming to us for a reason. And it looks like Aaron might be sharing the portal. And so this was a way, honestly, we recruited somebody from Boston that was just looking to move to the South and found our company that way. And it was really, really, and this is that great map that has been created to show just how many of us there are spread across South Carolina. And, my goal is to find something for the 2 or 3 counties that don't have healthcare life sciences. I'm determined we're going to find an industry that wants to move to those counties so we cover the whole state. But this portal has been great, and it's working. So I encourage everybody that's a member of SCbio to post their jobs on this or link it to your website. I think it's definitely working. And so I'm thinking, I would be also remiss if I didn't talk about, we recruit a lot of people by through our intern program. So we at any given time have at least 100 interns, and they could start as young as high school. We always have a few high schoolers, mostly college age, and we've hired countless people by identifying them earlier on. And I would say one of my favorite interns of all time is Morgan Nichols, currently employed at SCbio. So that's one of my favorite interns of all time.
I love it. And so for those of you listening, a couple of things to note on there. So it's important. Obviously, we know Arthrex and Nephron, large organizations. I know there are a lot of people listening that have less than 100 employees. The good news is that there's data that suggests that about half of employees want to work for companies with between 6 and 100 employees, and the other half want to work for companies with 100 plus employees. So we each have the opportunity to find the right fits for our organization. But one of the common themes I hear throughout that is employer branding. While you didn't come right out and say, hey, this is all part of our employer branding process, getting the kids in there, getting the students in there, getting even the internal branding, like you said, Lou, fantastic point about how it engages our teammates. The more they get to share their knowledge with people who are interested in learning more about the industry. That's awesome. So as we take that shift from recruiting and now we start talk about retaining and developing top talent, first of all, I'm curious. So they say the average millennial stays with the company 2 to 3 years. The average Gen X are 3 to 5 years. The average boomer 5 to 7 years. So it kind of tiers up, and that aligns well with a lot of different metrics out there. When you guys think about employee retention, are there any metrics or data that you look to say, hey, we're doing a good job when it comes to employee retention? And Jimmy, I'll start with you. Sorry, Lou, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I got to do a good moderator job and throw it to somebody and not make it nebulous, right?
Yeah, and Matt, I just wanted to add a couple things to what Lou offered on the recruiting side before I transition over, if you don't mind, to the retention side. But because what she described is really taking more of that hands-on, human-centered approach to recruiting. And we both started, with small companies at one point, right? And so as your company matures and you evolve, you learn to, sometimes you become more transactional. Recruiting is just a transaction. And that's not what these generations want. The workforce, I think you got to, go back to making it more conversational. And that's the probably part of the dilemma that Lou and Arthrex has. As you get so big, sometimes you can lose touch and lose sight of that human-centered, candidate-centric, kind of an approach. And so it's all these high-touch, hands-on, and then it's matching up, the interview process with the onboarding. What's stuck out in that? How do you match that up? Because retention is going to start with that very first experience, how they got onboarded after going through the recruiting process. So you really got to work on starting out strong, because those first impressions really, can set the tone. And you can do all this great work and spend 6 months recruiting someone, and if onboarding is a disaster, you got a real problem. You've invested a lot of time and resources in. And so, the only other thing I wanted to mention on recruiting, it's really a personal lesson, is, and I've used all kinds of scientific tools, and I think, the key is striking a balance. There's tools out there like predictive indexing and emotional intelligence, testing and things like that. And I've made the mistake personally of hiring for credentials. And I've probably hired about 500 people in the last 7 years myself personally. And I can tell you, I've been burned by the resumes. I've been burned on paper. And at the end of the day, I would, balance the science and the practical nature of approaching this. I would just use those tools, and there's many of them out there, to get me off the fence. If I was on the fence, I always reverted back to, do they fit into our culture? Because if they don't fit on the team, in my experience, it never works out. They become isolated. They're on an island at some point. There's lack of collaboration, all these other things. So in the end, I think, you really have to balance the science and that practical approach. But for me, if they don't fit on the team, it's a problem from day one. So I think you have to establish that as we move into, development retention. So Lou, anything to add to that? I just wanted to add those two things.
I agree. And I'm a hands-on approach. My daughter is actually the recruiter at our company. And so I'm very involved in what we're trying to do in the onboarding process. We start the first 2 weeks of employment, and everybody in our company, no matter what discipline, goes through a Nephron boot camp for the first 2 weeks. And that's so we can teach everybody the importance of all the departments. So I'm not asking someone to become a chemist, for example, but I do want them to understand what the QC chemists are doing, what the R&D chemists are doing, so we understand how important all the pieces of the puzzle are. And that's proven to be a really good, we didn't do that 10 years ago. We've done it for the last 5 or 6, and that's been a good tool. But I would say part of the reason we've been so lucky to keep the Gen Xers and the millennials is it's proven that they like to be a part of a philanthropic organization, and we're very, very, very involved in community endeavors. And I think, just the breast cancer walks and the, things that we're doing and sponsoring, people feel good to be a part of that, especially those younger demographics. And so I'm always moved by the folks that'll come up to me and say, thank you for doing something with the Leukemia Society. My father had leukemia, and it means a lot to me. And you just don't realize some of the things that you're doing, how they're touching your own employees when you weren't aware, perhaps, of how somebody is, family's been impacted by breast cancer, some of these other things. So I do think being involved in the community has been a good thing for us. I mean, it's a good thing to do anyway, but it's also a part of that retention, because people like to be involved with a group that's doing good things in the community, I believe. And so I would say that's important. We also, like, for example, I was concerned at the beginning of COVID because we are a respiratory company and are considered certainly essential in a respiratory pandemic, that people would feel very concerned about coming to work. So we have done things like just as goofy as Nephron t-shirts and Nephron ball caps and a Nephron umbrella and things like that. We tried to do something in the first few 6, 8, 10 weeks where there was something new happening. We gave out, everybody got free tissues and they got free hand sanitizer to take home to their family that we were making. And so I think that even though those aren't big expenditures, we were trying to make little tiny effort each week to say, thank you for showing up. We need you to be here. And, you know, we know that everybody's scared and this is an uncertain time. And then I actually added COVID testing to our company probably about, I would say, April of this year. And I think the folks have been, believe it or not, pleased that they could bring their families in if somebody was exposed and have the free COVID testing provided by the company. So while I never intended to be in the lab business, we find ourselves in it now. And so I was so proud of our HR group said, why don't we start doing the in-house drug screens? So we're actually adding those urine panels to our company offerings. And we've been able to partner with some of the businesses like Dominion Energy that's on our same street and doing their COVID testing. So things like that you're doing that you had no intention of ever doing in the first place, I think make people feel good to be a part of an effort in, you know, reaching out to the community.
That's fantastic, Lou. A couple of quick things on there. So Jimmy, you made a great point, and it's interesting. I was just writing about this morning. Even a donkey can act like a thoroughbred for 3 interviews. You have to apply some science to your hiring process and not just your gut, or else you're going to get burned 50% of the time, and you're going to wind up with a bunch of donkeys running around instead of thoroughbreds. But you touched on something else in there as well. When we look at data, we look at sort of scientific companies with a formalized onboarding program have higher employee retention, higher employee engagement. They have everything you want from your teammates, everything we're talking about here. Employee onboarding programs tend to be the leading indicator of success as it results in the year 2 and further on down the road for employees when we look back at the data. So, and that's something going back to the fact of, hey, look, whether you're 1,200 employees or 25 employees, anybody can implement a formalized employee onboarding program. It's not necessarily always going to be a 2-week formalized boot camp, but you can start laying the foundation. You know, one of the things we like to say is you can't do too much onboarding. You can only do too little. And so when we look at those things, they're really important for organizations of all size. But let's talk about, you know, we've talked about retention. We've started to tiptoe over that line. And let's talk about employee development and how that fits into your business model, and then how it affects the retention of your employees. And Jimmy, I'll kick it back over to you for that. And you can add anything else you want on the prior comments as well.
Yeah, no, great comments, Matt. And again, totally agree with everything Lou said. And Lou, what you said is actually critical for the audience. And it's you know, when you find those mission-driven employees, and we're lucky in life sciences, right? A lot of people get into this business because they are more, you know, mission driven or philanthropic, and you know, we a lot of us, right? We do it for the right reasons, and so it really does start there. And so that was a really important point I think you brought up for our audience. But you know, the development's key to getting to the retention piece, right? And I think we all know this. And again, depending on the size and complexity of the organizations on this Zoom call today, it doesn't really matter. There's some basic principles that apply. And, you know, I already mentioned from the very moment you onboard, you know, think through that process, have structure in place. You just can't wing it. That sets a tone for potentially the rest of their employment. But, you know, have some structure, but stay fluid, adjust. I think, you know, Lou brought up another great point of, you know, even when you talked about people watching the chemist and shadowing. And so what we do is have a mentor-mentee program here is big for us now. And we've just evolved into that over the decades here. And so one of the things I do is I actually take some of these younger employees around to different parts of the campus, and we spend time so they understand their contribution to the mission, right? Because this is a huge team effort, and they understand some of the other roles and departments. And there's nothing like seeing it and feeling it and talking to people. You just can't see it in a PowerPoint. It's not enough to connect them. And there's lots of studies out there. One in particular is a Harvard Business School study that talks about when you get, whether it's customers or employees, emotionally connected to the mission and what you do, the value of that employee or customer more than doubles the lifetime value, right? And so it's finding ways like that. And one of the things we've done is we've made investments in wellness and employee health. And again, not everybody can do it to high levels, but you got to start somewhere. Just salary and benefits isn't enough anymore. So focusing on wellness. The other big thing for us was focusing on workspaces. And especially, Lou had mentioned, Gen Z and millennials. And so for us, we had to redesign some of our areas and create these collaborative spaces. And we were fortunate to put a little smoothie bar and a little coffee bar in different areas. And so, having these spaces where they can go. I can remember in the hospital business, I had a hard time getting a picnic table for people to sit on for lunches through facilities and the structure that we had. And, that was, 10 plus years ago. It's so important, right? So to Lou's point, sometimes small things like that make more of a difference than you know. So I think it's a combination of those things, right? I think it's having some structured development programs, survey feedback, having some authentic discussions and coaching and all these things, and in addition to the wellness and the physical plant layout, if you can afford to do that.
So Matt, I have to say something about something, Jimmy. It's pretty widely known that my nickname is Cockadoodle-Loo. I'm a Gamecock alum and a fan, but I've recently become very engaged with Clemson University, and I stole an idea from them since really just before COVID. I was on the campus, and they had these super cool picnic tables with solar panels as the cover versus an umbrella. I thought it was the greatest thing because you can charge your phone and have your lunch outdoors. So I'll give you that idea that I stole from Clemson, Jimmy. If you get picnic tables in your budget, that was a good one. We have a live roof above about 3,000 square feet as part of our campus. And so I made an area on the live roof where you can eat outside. And that's where we put these picnic bench tables that I stole the idea from Clemson. I thought they were just the coolest things. And we actually keep bees at our facility. And when we rob the honey, we give them little jars of honey to as many employees as we can. So when you said earlier, Matt, about some of the unorthodox ideas, we're pretty unorthodox around Nephron. And to your point about onboarding the right people with that kind of mentality, if you're not willing to be real nimble and flexible, you won't fit in our company because we do crazy things. But one of the things I am very proud of is I've made a point to focus on diversity and inclusion. And we have a wall at Nephron that if you're from a different country or you were born from, in a different country, we have your flag on the wall. And I'm happy to say that we're up to 41 flags. And I never believed growing up in South Carolina we'd get to that point here because, Florida is a melting pot. Everybody's from somewhere else. South Carolina wasn't that way growing up here. So I'm pleased to say that, we have people from multiple spots in Africa, India. We have a Vietnamese folks. Anyway, 41 countries represented. And I'm real proud of that. And the data tells us that the more diverse you are, the more productive you are. But I also think that adds a new focus to our culture at Nephron because people they're looking at what they do through a different lens than maybe somebody you were raised next door to. So I like the fact that we've made a good effort around diversity. And then, following our boot camp, there's a long OJT process. And then I'm very supportive of if you find a class that you want to attend or certification, the company covers the cost of that training. And I was just, I guess it's now started the first part of this year, we've added, based on some work done by some professors at the University of South Carolina, our own Six Sigma course. And so our first graduates present their projects next week, and then they graduate, and we'll begin our second class of 10. And I think, you know, people like that they can further their education as a part of what you do in your company. And so we've supported like a couple electricians going over to the local tech school, and they're still getting paid, they're still working, but they're improving their education. And I find that people aren't using me to get the education and go somewhere else. I think they're appreciative to get the opportunity, and it builds a little bit of loyalty to folks to say, hey, I was able to do something with my career at Nephron. Why not I stay there and continue that journey? So I think that, you know, other educational opportunities are a good thing. And I don't limit it to the large research universities. We're doing things with, and I mentioned earlier, the school that added the pharmaceutical manufacturing is in Newberry, South Carolina. And that Newberry College has added, since I've gotten to work with them, a 4-year respiratory therapy degree, the only one in the state of South Carolina, and then this pharmaceutical manufacturing degree. I think all those things are good. Furman's doing some real important work around leadership and with a big focus on healthcare and life sciences. So it's really across the whole state. And we've just recently come to work with Coastal Carolina in the Myrtle Beach area, as well as doing some more things with College of Charleston. So I think there's opportunities for all of us employers to find really good candidates and keep them and retain them, to your point, Matt.
That's fantastic, Lou. Question, is there anything Nephron doesn't do out there? I'm just curious now that I'm hearing beekeeping, and it feels like every week, you know, the testing. I'm an
adrenaline junkie, and I'm pretty sure I'm undiagnosed ADD. I like a lot of things going on at the same time. So yeah, we'll try anything if it helps for the good of the cause.
I can relate, my friend. So you touched on a couple of things in there that I want to just emphasize. Employee development. When we talk about all these things, they all kind of fit together, right? The recruitment comes from all the things we do for the employees that are currently on board, which perpetuate our employer brand for the future layer of employees that continue to kind of feed each other. But when you look at talent right now, top of the list as far as what people are looking for in their next employer are the opportunities to grow themselves and grow their careers. And so to Jimmy's point, if you're not casting the mission and the vision forward and they don't see what their future is with the company, then how will they know what their future is with the company? And you have to wash people in it every day, every week, every month. And then to Lou's point, you know, that development on why would I want somebody to stay static here at my organization, right? I want them to get better. I want to invest in them. I want them to be loyal to me the same way I'm loyal to them. And, you know, we always say, hey, look, you're going to be way better when you leave here than when you started. Obviously, we hope you never leave, but that's our investment in you. So, all right, guys. So we're coming up on time. It's 10:32. We've got, it looks like a stop at 10:35. So what's your final parting wisdom for people out there when it comes to the recruitment, retention, development of our number one asset, our people? Jimmy, I'll go with you first.
All right. Yeah, great commentary. And Matt, you brought up a great point about empowering employees to also be recruiters and build the brand. The brand's important. A lot of value there. But I would say, you know, make HR your strategic partner in this, right? It's a big job. It needs to be well thought out. Structure is good, not too much though. I think you got to be a little wild like Lou and her team to stay creative and energize the team and keep them engaged. And you know, whether it's through team building events or little perks along the way, just, you know, never forget the human side of this. Business is business, but you got to get people energized to just run through the wall to advance the organization and create a sense of urgency and advancement. So that's my elevator pitch for you.
Love it. Lou, parting thoughts for us.
Well, I would say that we have a great story to tell, and all of us in this industry need to be talking more about what we do so that the South Carolinians, the young students that are graduating, don't feel the need to jump to Atlanta, Charlotte, or bigger metropolitan areas. We have these offerings right here at home that are well paid, and especially in this industry, you know, we pay better than others. And if we just need to tell that story more, so we keep the talent here in South Carolina. That's what one of the things I really want to focus on is let's retain the talent. And there are plenty of us, you know, Jimmy's company, our company, and others that are hiring that you can find a home. And I think that story is important for us to just spread the word. And I like what Jimmy said. Let's tell our employees to recruit for their own team. I think that's a powerful message.
That's awesome. Great point, Lou. And I think there has to be this connection of marketing and HR, right? So when you talk about storytelling and delivering that message to the market about why we're such a great place to work and empowering our team with that story, that's part marketing, right? We're not all great storytellers. So fantastic point there to end it, Lou. I love it. And for those of you listening, good artists copy, great artists steal. You should be stealing all these ideas. There's so many great nuggets on here. I took pages of notes. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Lou. That was tremendous. We appreciate your time so much.
Thank you all.
Matt, what a wonderful way to bring this all home. We're so thankful for Lou, Jimmy, and Matt. Wonderful discussion. So now we're going to get to the next part. So we have a 10-minute break before our next session. You will see links for the next session in your chat. So those will be coming your way. And we'll talk just a little bit. So when you just take a little time for yourself, refill your coffee cup or whatever you need to do, right? The next sessions, there's two, again, another workforce track. So that is going to focus on virtual, leading teams virtually effectively. ChartSpan, Annie McCoy, she's got a great story. So does Andrew Collins with Alchemy, and Jenny Dunlap with Parker Poe is going to be moderating that session. And then pivoting with a partner, collaborating to grow your business. Another great story. So it's hard to choose. We're recording these, so don't worry, guys. So Sean Regan will be leading the discussion of how his company partnered successfully with Xeon and MUSC. So some great, real practical information and cool stories. You know, we're continuing that storytelling.